Hello, hello, hello. Hi. Welcome to our very first Life Hack event. And I am so excited. So maybe you saw me posting about it on social, or maybe you came across it on our Facebook page or wherever. But we're so thrilled to do this too on World Health Day today. And this is a new thing that we've kicked off where we're going to do it, myself and Paulina from the morning show. We're going to do this a couple times a month where we talk to an expert. And it's going to be in all kinds of different fields. And they're going to help us with life. They're going to help us hack life. And so today, like I said, we're starting things off on World Health Day. And I'm here with Dr. Saloumeh of Sufi Psychology. Hi, Dr. Saloumeh.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for being here. And
Having
I'm so excited to have you. First, why don't you kind of give people who are watching on Facebook a little info about yourself and about the Sufi Psychology Association and what you guys do?
Sure, absolutely. Well, my name is Dr. Salome. My last name is Bozorgzadeh, very long, no one can say it, so I go by my first name. I'm a clinical psychologist here in Chicago and the current president of the Sufi Psychology Association. This is a psychological group that takes the teachings of MTO School of Sufism and applies them to psychology. And basically, Sufism is about, it's a path of self-knowledge. It's about learning about who you are, not just the labels that we put on ourselves, what we've adopted from society or the narratives we have in our head, but that essence of us, that source of strength that gets us through when we're struggling, when we're creative and we come up with something and we're like, wow, this was incredible. Where did that come from? So it's all about learning about all aspects of yourself, including that part of us that some people will say it's a spiritual part, but it's that part. And understanding your brain, understanding your body, understanding your social relationships, every aspect of yourself, learning about all of those. So that's who we are. And we've been helping out healthcare workers with the Caring for Our Caregivers initiative, which basically we've been giving stress relieving programs to all the hospitals around the globe at this point.
That's how I first met you because I heard of that program and I thought it was incredible. I mean, how's that going? It seems like it's been super successful.
It's been incredible. So we are in all 50 states, 4 countries, 334 hospitals, I believe, at this point. And it hasn't been a year yet. And now we're moving into another phase where a lot of these hospitals require more than just what we were providing. So we're creating wellness programs for them to fill in some of the gaps and to basically be complementary to what they already have in place for wellness. So it covers all the little things that maybe a regular wellness program can't provide.
Oh, I love it. And so, like you said, you kind of cover all these different aspects. And so that's why I wanted to have you on because, man, I mean, who would have thought this is where we would be, a year ago? Life has just totally changed and been flipped upside down. So many people's lives are different. I mean, um, first and foremost, like, what would you say to somebody if they're just maybe they lost their job, maybe they even lost somebody to COVID? I mean, what would you say to somebody who we're sort of now, it seems, coming to near the end of this thing. What would you say to kind of take the next steps forward?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is I don't want to ever minimize what they're going through. Like a lot of times we'll say things like, something will come out of this or there'll be a learning lesson or whatever, but it was a struggle and it's a challenge. And I think the one thing I will say is that I guess one of the realities of life is nothing comes out of comfort. It's the struggle that we learn, grow, and something new comes out of it. So it hurts and it's awful and it's horrible. But the reality is that most people are functioning still, which really speaks to how incredibly resilient human beings are. Because this year has been challenging on so many levels, and yet they're persevering, they're finding ways to get around it, they're getting creative, they're coming up with all sorts of things. So I think that would be the one thing, is I would remind them that it is hard, it's been challenging, it's been difficult, but you have made it thus far. You've been able to do this, no one else, it's been you, and that is still with you, and that is what will get you through to the next step. It just might look a little different, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So one thing it's been reminding me, and I think this is really relevant. I've been thinking a lot about like butterflies and caterpillars, and I don't know if you've read about how that whole process happens, that basically this caterpillar, um, it the cocoon kind of forms around it. It doesn't really know what's going on. It doesn't understand that there's a whole butterfly process later on. Like it has no concept of it. And its entire body liquefies and then recreates within this cocoon, within this chrysalis. And then it wrestles and it has to struggle to crack it and to unfold its wings. And if it doesn't struggle and it doesn't wrestle, its wings won't be strong enough to fly. So it's this whole process that it has to do. And then it comes out and it's a butterfly. It's completely different than what it was before. Never would have thought. And it had to go through this whole process. And so that's just kind of what I've been thinking about this whole year of, I wonder if this is kind of a cocoon of sorts for us.
That I did not know all that. I knew a little bit. I knew the gist. I didn't know. That's amazing. Yeah, that's a very good analogy for all this. And also what came to my mind too is like that saying, um, like the idea of sort of like going through the pain as opposed to just avoiding and going around it. It sounds kind of that's what you're saying is important is like we kind of have to go through these struggles to maybe take us to the next step, whatever that is.
And psychologically speaking, in terms of emotions, one of the things is we actually have to experience emotions. We have a tendency of wanting to cut them off. Like the minute the intensity rises, I want to do something to escape it. I'll drink, I'll, smoke weed, I will watch TV, I'll sleep, whatever to escape it. But if you actually do, what you end up is you decrease your ability to tolerate emotions. So smaller things work you up because you haven't built that muscle. So you're right. Like part of it is also learning to tolerate emotions so that they don't feel so overwhelming and challenging.
Yeah, and okay, so I want to touch on this and come back in a minute, but from what I understand, we have somebody in the waiting room, and this kind of touches on something you briefly mentioned, but like relationships, right? Because I know so many people who have struggled so much in so many different areas when it comes to dating, and it's this time has challenged so many people who are in serious relationships, and it's put a lot of people to the test. And so I think we have Mary. Is Mary still there with us, and would she like to join us? Perhaps I believe she might hop on in and come on. Let's see. Maybe not. Okay. Well, that's okay. If not, I'll just kind of maybe ask the question on her behalf. And that is, she was wondering sort of what you think of dating apps during this time and, maybe what is the best way to date when we're not really allowed to see each other.
Yeah. It's interesting because, again, unprecedented, no one knows what to do, but we are social creatures. We really need that social interaction. And you've seen that, isolation is actually a form of torture, right? That is used in prisons and in camps. I mean, it really messes with you. So there is, we really do actually need a sense of social interaction. And, part of that is, yeah, now there's all these online dating apps. I mean, they were there before, but I think, my take on all of this is just from a Sufi psychology standpoint is coming back to yourself. Just be very aware of what your intentions are, what your goals are for it, what you're seeking, and to curb your expectations. And then why not? If this is a way for you to interact with somebody, for you to build even a connection, even for this time period, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, obviously, with COVID, there's all the safety precautions, but they've come up with ways around that, right? Technology doesn't stop. There's like online platforms and then like social distancing, dates. I think they go on walks together. I mean, there's all these ways. But I think it's been a challenging time, and ourselves as social beings were really tested during this period. So I think there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with it as long as you recognize what you're really looking for.
Well, and I think too, kind of just what we even were talking about before is this idea of like, if you're struggling or feeling sad, it's like okay to feel those things, right? Like it's okay and to go through it. And then um, I know too, and I mean, this is myself included. Sometimes I will, tell myself I have to be positive. No, like you have to be positive, but that it's okay to not always have that positive outlook. And, how can we be kinder to ourselves when there's so many wild things going on around us?
One of the most fascinating things to me is because I have this great job where I get to sit in people's heads, right? Like usually we're just alone with our own thoughts, but I get
Yeah.
to hear about everyone else's. And one of the most interesting things for me is the fact that we are or not, I don't want to generalize, but a lot of us are so cruel to ourselves. I mean, the way we talk to ourselves, the expectations we put on ourselves is would never be something we would say to others. And a lot of times in sessions, like even my own clients will say, like, oh, I would never say that to someone else. And I'm like, but what why you?
Yeah.
Um, I used to work with clients who would engage in self-injurious behaviors like cutting and so forth. And they would oftentimes say, "Well, what's the big deal? It's my body, right? Like, what do you care? Like, this is my body. I'm not hurting anyone else. It's my body." And I remember I used to always say to them that my issue with this, and the part that I have an issue with, like on a personal level, is that the one person who has been there for you when other people have failed you, when other people haven't met your expectations, were busy doing their own things, weren't able to measure up, in a time of COVID, weren't able to be there for you. The one person who was there for you was you, right? And that's the one that you are beating up on. That's the one that you're treating this way. And
Mm.
so I really think it's a matter of shifting the way that we see ourselves. And part of that has to come back to really understanding and recognizing who we are. A lot of times people think we are just all the things we've done or the crazy thoughts we have in our head that we're like, oh, but there's so much more to us that when you don't recognize the incredible, like the vastness and the beauty of as a human being who we are, it's really easy to mistreat it.
And something, so, people maybe they have, if they've been following along, like you and I have actually had conversations before. And one of the things you said that still sticks with me is this idea that when, like, we watch a TV show and it's suspenseful and then it ends on this to be continued until next week. And we have a tendency, especially somebody like me who has anxiety and gets super anxious about a lot of things, I just stop things right there and I can just ruminate on it forever, but I don't quite go past to that next episode. Can you talk about that?
Sure, sure. So basically, so from a Sufi psychology standpoint, anxiety is when we are looking at all the things that could happen to us, right? There are an infinite number of things that could happen, right? I could lose my job, and a car, and a car could hit me, and this could happen, and this, and we are constantly trying to manage and navigate all the things in our world so it doesn't disrupt our homeostasis, right? That is a fool's errand. There's no way that you're going to succeed in that task.
Mhm.
So the other side of things is to shift that perspective from being in psychology, we call it a locus of control, from your locus of control being external with all these things that could happen, and shift it internally, which means knowing that you have control over things. You might not have control over losing your job, for example. Let's say that happens, but you have control over what comes next, right? You know that, okay, if I lose my job, I'm not going to just sit there. Like I get the letter, I've lost my job, and I'm like, and I'm going to sit there for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And my money finishes, and then I have nothing else to do, and I'm just going to like freeze and
Right.
and like end up like with nothing, right? And you trust that you're scrappy. You've got this sense of survival within you that you're gonna, okay, well then what do I need to do? Do I need to borrow? Do I need to ask? Do I need to get a part-time job? Do I need to get like anything, even something that's not in my field, just something to get by?
Go on LinkedIn or whatever. Yeah, whatever it might be.
I will
Mhm.
do something, right? So when your focus is on the fact that like I know that like whatever comes at me, I'll find a way. Like, okay, it'll be challenging, but I'm not one to, I'll figure it out. Your anxiety significantly decreases. And so when you think about the way our brain works, when we think about something that's anxiety provoking, like what if I lose my job? It's like watching a TV show that ends on a cliffhanger. Like if you've ever seen, I mean, the one I think of is Handmaid's Tale. If you
Okay.
because every time I used to watch that, I mean, it's not on right now, but when I remember an episode would end and I could feel the cortisol in my system increase. And I'm like, I am so stressed out right now.
I
So
think of like This Is Us, like, because I'm always like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like that's what I always
okay,
think
that's
of.
a good
Yeah.
one too. This is
Yeah.
right. So it's kind of like ending the episode there, right? At the absolute climactic part, the worst part. What if I lose my job? You have no choice but to spin when you end it there, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. And oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it's focused entirely on the thing that could happen to you. And that's it. But if you play the tape through, you play to the next episode, and it's like, oh, okay, well, then I guess I would do this. And all of a sudden it decreases, right? The anxiety will significantly decrease because now this second part is about you. It's not about the external locus of control, all the things that are going to happen to you. But now this part is about you. And you can at least trust yourself.
Absolutely. And so, do you have, because this is our life hack series, so I'm wondering if you have maybe a hack or two to like, because I feel like, for some people, you hear a lot, well, to relax, meditate, like meditate, calm down. Is there anything like, because I struggle with meditation, I still am like, if am I doing this right? Like, is this what it's supposed to feel like? Like, can you offer any tips if you are in that really stressful place and it's hard to settle yourself down and there's so many stresses now? Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, there are so many. So the reason meditation is beneficial after you've practiced it for a while because it teaches you how to navigate your mind, how to actually turn it off. We're never really taught how to do that. So, but before you get there, you're not going to be able to, if you're in a stressful moment, to sit in a corner and try to clear your mind, right? That's not going to be at all effective. So some of the things you could do are grounding techniques. This is one of the ones that we use. I don't know if we talked about it in one of the other episodes. I feel like I went through so many, but
I can't remember, but this is one of my favorites. So yeah, go
okay. So
ahead.
basically, what happens when we're anxious or when we're stressed out is, our cortisol is high and we are in our brains. Like our brains are going, 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 and we're kind of caught up in that. And so a grounding technique basically brings you to the focus of your senses. And what that does is it brings you into the present moment. So one of the things I do with clients in session even is I will say, okay, like touch your pants and tell me what that feels like. What is that texture? And so they'll touch their pants and they'll say, okay, it's like if they're wearing jeans, it's kind of rigid, it's kind of rough. Okay, what does the couch feel like? Oh, well, this is kind of fuzzy, it's soft, right? I'll ask them, what do you smell? And so they're like forced to really focus. What am I smelling? Well, I smell this or I smell that. Or what do you hear? I hear the air conditioning, the clicking or the ticking of the clock, right? All of that, because it's giving your brain something else that's very tangible to focus on, a task, it gives you relief from that cycle that you might be in that's spinning you out. So for a moment, it breaks out of that, kind of grounds you into the moment, and taking deep breaths, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, which stimulates the autonomic nervous system, which calms you down. These are both really good ways to kind of just settle down, break out of that cycle for a moment and give you a moment to like reset, if you will.
That's fabulous. Because you know what? Because actually, the grounding that I know of is even the idea of like going outside or walking barefoot, or like I have a grounding mat, which
Mhm.
I try to use regularly. Is that something too you might even recommend to people?
Yeah, grounding, there's a lot of different techniques. So there's like the forest bath, I think is what they're called, when they like walk outside in a forest like barefoot or in nature
Uh,
barefoot. So it's really about activating kind of these senses. One of the things is I'll tell clients, like clients who get test anxiety, and they're nervous on a test, I'll have them put like a little bit of like essential oil or perfume on their wrist. And in that moment, when they're really nervous, like smell it and ask yourself, what are the notes? Can you identify the different notes that you're smelling? Right? It gets them out of this place of, because the thing that drives anxiety is your thoughts. So
mhm.
it's, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. And it's always future oriented. Anxiety is always future oriented. Depression is past oriented. So if you live in the past, it's depressed. If you're living in the future, you're anxious. And
Yep.
one of the Sufi teachers has a statement that says those who live in the past have passed, right? Because they're not even in the present moment. They're not living. You're just kind of for yesterday.
Yeah.
So it's a good reminder.
And then I've read like even an additional part of that, live in the present because it's a gift, right?
Exactly, right. There's all these beautiful plays on words
Yeah.
that really, really are helpful. And I think also, with everything, I think in terms of, being kinder to ourselves and just gentler with ourselves is to also remind ourselves that nothing happens like that.
Mm.
Everything is gradual, right? And so recognizing the little changes that we've made, the little steps, recognizing that, okay, I didn't do this that well, maybe, or as much as my expectations were, but it was better than last time. So that's something, you know?
Yeah, sort of not, focusing on what I have to do, what I have to do, but also, right, like, look how far I've come. Look at the little things I have done. Yeah, because I know I'm guilty of that. I think a lot of people are just sort of forgetting all the other stuff you've done. And I know you mentioned too, some of your patients um, are really finding even being outside helpful. And with spring here, it's all about kind of renewal and regeneration. Like, I'm sure, do you find it helpful for people to go outside and kind of be in the warm
Absolutely.
weather? Yeah.
I mean, we know the effects of the sun and how it helps us, right? We know that places that have colder winter and less sun, people really have a vitamin D deficiency. And that definitely one of the symptoms is lower mood and depression. I mean, it's incredible. But, you know, we, we are these beings that we do harmonize with our environment. We're just naturally that way. We harmonize with the people we're around. We harmonize with our environment. And if you're really tuning in to your body, your experience, you'll see that you go through the cycles the same way that nature does. You'll see that in the winter time, you feel more reflective, you feel more kind of internal. As spring comes, and this is something that, most of my clients all know, is like when spring comes, I get all excited. There's Persian New Year, which is the first day of
Yeah.
spring. And that basically it's so the new year is at the equinox. It was March 20th. And what the practice is that just as the seeds are beginning to like germinate and the ground is getting rid of the coldness of winter and there's buds on trees, that you too are kind of coming alive after this like winter, this cold hibernating winter. And, part of the tradition, which is really fun, is, you hardcore spring clean, you donate, you rid yourself of things you don't use, you evaluate your relationships, deal with grudges, you get rid of the things you're carrying from your past. And what we love, especially the ladies, you wear brand new clothes you've never worn before, and you get your nails, hair done, everything done. You close your eyes and you turn inward for that time of New Year. And so, and most people will either pray or meditate, whatever feels spiritually right to them. And as the earth shifts into spring, you too, you like awaken to this new beginning. And what I find is like, even, it's not Persians, it's like even like a lot of my clients, they feel it, they feel spring. I just had a client earlier who I said, "How are you?" And she said, it's spring. I feel it. Like I feel energized. I feel great. It's spring, and we all feel it naturally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, just even, the city, it kind of has this whole energy where it's like people are kind of feeling it. And so then everyone kind of plays off that, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely, I grew up in California, but which is not a city really. LA is not really a city. And then I moved to Chicago, and yes, there's this like energy and this vibrancy, like
But,
with it,
uh,
where you do. It's lovely. It's a beautiful day right now too, by the way.
yes.
Amazing. Great day to be outside. So
Yeah. And so, okay, what about the opposite end of the spectrum? Because, so for myself, and sometimes people are surprised to learn this, but I'm actually super introverted and I find it a little bit easier to be by myself. So for me, I had some bad days during COVID and the quarantine, and then other days I was like, this is what I was built for. Like, this is great. And so, like, I know that there's been people who are kind of like me who are sort of anxious about like re-entering the world and re-entering into like back where we used to be. Do you have any tips for those people?
I will say that I think a lot of people are, even the people who are more extroverted. I feel like we've lost some of our social tact, maybe,
Yes,
for lack of better
yes.
words. When you don't have it for a while, you're just like my clients, who a lot of them are extroverts. They're used to being like, out there talking to people. they're like, oh God, I have to go out. I don't want to go out. I have to see people. You know? It's a thing because that's how our body operates, is it will adapt to whatever you put it in, which is also another reason why we're so resilient. So it has adapted to this incredible, incredible time of isolation. And so now the concept of going out, yes, it is nerve wracking. The one thing I just want to remind everybody is we're all in the same boat. I mean, it's not like there's someone out there who is like super great at social skills and they're going to make fun of you, laugh and point if you're like, you know.
Yeah.
And I think just easing into what you're comfortable with. And you might find that, you know, the way that things were before no longer serve you. And that's okay. A lot of times we're trying to hold on to, but this is how it was before, and I need to go back to normal. Um,
Yeah.
the reality is that this was a significant time in our lives. And however much we kicked and screamed our way through it, we went through it. And there's no way that it didn't change us in some way. So I
Absolutely.
think, yeah, we got to be ready for the fact that what this next phase is going to be like. It might be that we are different. You know, we might not like all the extraneous social stuff. You know, we might want a little bit more isolation, and it's absolutely okay.
Mhm.
It's just a new way.
Yeah, it's funny. I was laughing because, right, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine and she said kind of similar to what your patient said, that I have people now texting me, do you maybe want to meet up for a socially distant dinner or something? And she's like, I don't think I want to. So I was like, don't, it's okay. But yeah, to your point. So, I mean, just as we kind of, you've had so many great tips and so many good hacks as part of this life hack event. Is there anything else you sort of want to leave people with, anything else that we didn't get a chance to touch on?
I mean, the I guess the one thing, it's probably because it's the thing that's foremost on my mind, probably because it's what I'm working on, right? But um, I think it's the notion of expectations. Expectations get us into a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And when you look at the root of everything, you have an expectation. If you're upset or disappointed in someone or something or some situation, it's because you had some expectation about how that was supposed to go.
Yes.
And expectations are just kind of arbitrary. They're not really based on anything. It's just, I think this is how it should be and therefore it should be, you know. It's so I guess if the one thing I could leave everyone with is to recognize when if you are feeling upset or disappointed, to recognize that it has more to do with an expectation you had. And maybe the easier way to live and to focus, or to try to live, is to not have these expectations, to live freely and allow and accept one another and things in the world for how they are. You know, when I have like a really great time, for example, let's say I have I go out and I have a fun time, and then I'm holding on to that. This was so great. This was so amazing. This is so amazing. And now I'm expecting every single night to be as amazing. And if it doesn't match up, I'm kind of like, nah, this was fun. All right, it was a, you know, whereas if I didn't have that expectation, every single night would be fun. Every single night would be lovely. And I would really be embracing these moments.
Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely. And so, Dr. Solomon, I just want to thank you so much for joining us for our first Life Hack event. It's always so nice to talk to you.
Thank
Sufi
you for having me.
Psychology
This was great.
Association. Of
Yeah.
course, of course. And I'm sure at some point we'll have something else. Well, we'll have to have you on again to
I so well, good luck to you. I mean, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
it's always fun. Thank you so much. Okay, thanks for everybody who tuned in. I hope that you picked up maybe a hack or two that you can take with you into the next few months. So, okay, thank you.